with a man who wants to be president of the United States for no particular reason than he wants to be president of the United States. For more than a decade, he hasn't lifted a finger to help a single conservative, or for that matter, many Republican candidates. But he's decided he wants to be president now. So he has resigned from his various boards. He's resigned from his various investment businesses. And that's Jeb Bush. The American people don't want Jeb Bush as president. The vast majority of Republicans don't want Jeb Bush as their nominee. And yet Jeb Bush is out there talking about moderation. Jeb Bush is out there talking about, while he's really a conservative, but, not like these whack jobs today, who oppose amnesty and open borders and centralized, nationalized local education. He's a real conservative, you see. The man has really no connection with what's going on in this country. He just appears because the Bush family's decided they want another president. They want to make history for all time. 3 presidents from one family in 2 generations. What about the country? What's in the best interest of the country? Well, Jeb, you see, would be in the best interest of the country. There was a piece in Politico the other day, I have it in front of me. Jeb Bush courts D.C. lobbyists. His allies are being asked to raise $50,000 each for the likely 2016 hopeful. Where better to get the pulse of the American people than go to corporatists and lobbyists in Washington, D.C.? This is why Republicans refuse to embrace constitutional republicanism. Because these people who they ask money from want government and need government, even though they may dress up as Republicans and conservatives. They're changing our language, they're changing our identity as Republicans and conservatives, and they're trying to use money to bulldoze us. Jeffrey Lord has an outstanding piece at conservativereview.com. You know who was present, he writes, he points out from this Politico article at this meeting? More than 30 association executives. They're herded into the National Association of Wholesale Distributors office, including bigwigs from the Business Roundtable, the American Bankers Association, Airlines for America, the American Insurance Association, United States Telecom Association, the National Retail Association and Federation, CTIA, the Wireless Association, the Edison Electric Institute, Ford, Westfront Strategies, the American Continental Group, and Hewlett-Packard. This is a man who refused to go to South Carolina and speak at a Tea Party event, a very, very large event. He said it's just too much. He's not going to talk to them. But this he'll talk to. Not only talk to, he rounds them up. No connection to reality whatsoever. And as Jeff Lord points out, this is the myth of the so-called moderation game. The moderates. He says, here's a guy who wants to be president of the Washington Lobbyists Association. Oops, sorry, president of the United States. And instead of showing up at gatherings of average, working Americans at, say, the Iowa or New Hampshire Freedom Summits or the South Carolina Tea Party Convention, where other Republican presidential hopefuls meet, Bush makes a stand to a handful of elitist Washington lobbyists. An action that underlines his expressed intention to find a way to lose the primary to win the general, which in turn not only tells the base of the Republican Party all they need to know about a potential Bush 45, but sets the candidate up for an easy portrayal by Democrats as exactly the kind of elitist candidate Americans love to hate. The inside the Beltway candidate, who's not only an insider himself, but all too eager to sell out to the lobbyist crowd of special interests. Exactly. Now, to understand how this works, if you're not familiar with the inside the Beltway game, and Lord points this out, take a look at one of the attendees at the D.C. lobbyist gathering for Jeb Bush, identified as Westfront Strategies. The Hill newspaper noted the firm revolves around a prominent group of 5 lobbyists from law and lobbying shop Blank Rome that has formed its own bipartisan boutique shop on K Street. So the group's cutesy name, unoriginally, if typically, an insider's reference to the view from the west front of the U.S. Capitol building, is supposed to signal the influence of its members in the town's various institutions. The firm's members include a former chief of staff to a House Democrat, a key aide to incoming Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, a policy staffer for House Republican leadership, plus alumni from the Bush 43 Justice Department and White House. Lobbying disclosure records show that members of the new firm appear on contracts with Expedia, Microsoft, Motorola Solutions, Comcast, Best Buy, T-Mobile, and Prudential Financial, though it's still unclear who will be part of Westfront's new client roster. Yes, you read that right. Comcast, the owner of MSNBC, the Al Sharpton Network, whose CEO pals around with President Obama. And it goes on and on and on. The incestuousness. So here we are talking about limited government, private property rights, the Constitution. Here we are talking about reversing course. Here we are talking about federalism, individual sovereignty, faith and family. Of course, it all falls on deaf ears inside the Beltway. And this is why they trash people like Ben Carson and Sarah Palin and Donald Trump and Ted Cruz and so many others. Because they don't have the seal of approval, the certificate, from these people inside the Beltway who seek to buy the next presidency, whichever party, as they've bought the Speaker and the Majority Leader of the Senate, as they've bought themselves the amnesty that they've always wanted, as they've bought themselves the national health care that they've always wanted. We're told this is what the great Edmund Burke himself would want. This is true conservatism, we're told, which embraces moderation. This is called being temperate and prudential, judicious and wise, we are told. The debt gets bigger and bigger. It is ballooning like a massive planet ready to blow up. The border is more and more porous. We now have bipartisan opposition to building physical barriers. The military is now treated as just another chip in a poker game. If we're going to cut welfare, then we have to cut our military. And, of course, we don't cut welfare, and we do cut the military. Illegal aliens are almost immediately vested in certain welfare rights. Military personnel who've put their lives on the line, having insurance reduced, and other privileges that they've earned, taken away from them. You think you're rooting for a party that is a conservative party. I am here to tell you, it is not until we take that party back. The Democrat Party has taken a stand. They're out of the closet. They're in the open. Their leader, their president, has told us over and over and over again that he hates America. Oh, he puts it in flowery terms, fundamental transformation. But he hates America because that's what fundamental transformation is about. Again and again, I say, you don't fundamentally transform something you love, admire, or that you consider productive or good or useful or anything of the sort. You fundamentally transform something that you detest, that you seek to fundamentally rearrange. And they just keep promoting Bush. But it's not just Bush, just like Mitt Romney. No different. And you can hear the way they talk. Jeff Lord was a speechwriter for Ronald Reagan. I campaigned for Reagan early, 76 and 80. I served in his administration at some very significant levels. Remember when Reagan said, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help you," that's the phrase, that's the scariest of them all. He would ridicule big government. Do you hear that from Jeb Bush? Do you hear that from Mitt Romney? Do you hear that from any of these people? Of course not. Of course not. Reagan tried to get rid of the Department of Education. You know who blocked him? I was in the administration. Do you know who blocked him? The Republican Senate blocked him. Howard Baker blocked him, among others. He wanted to get rid of the Department of Energy. He thought it was preposterous. He was blocked again. There was much he wanted to do. There's an enormous amount he did do. But he not only had to overcome the Republicans to get nominated, so he would have a chance at landslide victories, but he had to continue to fight Republicans to push his agenda. Today, there is no conservative party. There just isn't. It doesn't mean the Republicans are all bad. Of course not. It doesn't mean they don't do good things from time to time. Of course not. They do. But it means that they're prepared to surrender the power of the purse, the power of impeachment, the power over naturalization of citizens, the power of commerce, the power of federalism, all these powers, they are prepared to surrender them. They already have. The American people don't want Obamacare. The Republican Party should be the anti-Obamacare party. They're not going to be the anti-Obamacare party. Do you want to know why, Mr. Producer? You want to know the bottom line? Because really big companies like GM, once this thing is fully implemented, they intend to dump as many of their employees into government health care as they can. That's the big secret. That's why the United States Chamber of Crony Capitalism, under that fraud, Thomas Donnelly, does not oppose Obamacare. Because the biggest among them have every intention of forcing you to subsidize their employees because they have negotiated health care packages that are ludicrous, that they can no longer afford, so they will dump it on you and me. And all those employees who thought they were getting some deal with their medical insurance, they're going to lose it. That's what's going on. Oh, Jeb Bush, he's the only one who can win. He's among the only ones who could lose. Oh, Hillary Clinton, I saw a poll, leads everybody by double digits. Jimmy Carter led Ronald Reagan by double digits in August before he lost in one of the greatest landslides in American history. Don't be cowed. Don't be shepherded. Don't be pushed. Use your head. It's time for a conservative, an unequivocal, unapologetic conservative who's smart, who's charismatic, who can tell a joke, but most of all, principled and can communicate those principles to the American people in a way that resonates.